And hello, welcome to the second and last day of the 17th Annual Madison World Music Festival, presented by the Wisconsin Union Theater, the Wisconsin Union, both of them part of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. My name is Esti Dinur. I am the artistic director of the festival. And again today we will be sharing some wonderful workshops and concerts with you. Please help spread the word. I hope you enjoyed yesterday, and I am sure you will enjoy again today. Our first workshop, titled Music, Instruments, and Cultural History of Jordan, is by musician Farah Siraj. Named Jordan's musical ambassadress, Farah balances a career that spans the United States, Europe, and the Middle East. She has performed at some of the world's most prestigious venues, including the United Nations, Nobel Prize Hall, the John F. Kennedy Center, and Lincoln Center, and she performed also to Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, former secretary, I should say. She also represents Jordan annually on United Nations World Peace Day and is an honorary board member of the World Music Institute in New York. Farah interviewer is Sabi Atiyeh, producer and co-host of Salamat, an Arab American show on WORT 89.9 FM in Madison, which seeks to create bridges of communication and understanding of Arabs in general and Arab Americans in particular. The show includes cultural segments, music, news from the Arab world, trivia quizzes, recipes, and more. Salamat airs every Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Daytime. It streams on WORTFM.org. We thank the UW-Madison Middle East Studies for their support of the workshop. Go ahead, Farah and Sabi.
Thank you so much, Esti. Hello, everyone who's watching.
Welcome to Madison via the World Wide Web, Farah. Good to meet you. I am pleased and honored to be part of this music festival. I just want to preface the whole event by saying, when I moved to America as a teenager, one of the first things that led me or connected me with my culture was the international music festivals, whether they were hosted by the Wisconsin Union, the University of Wisconsin, or any extended crazy enough organization to feature such bridges of understanding. And I believe that in addition to food, we'll talk about food shortly, music has always played a big role for me as a foreign American transplanted here in the US or replanted here in the US, in order to not just connect to my culture, but also use music as an introduction to the culture. So whenever there is an opportunity for me to get involved, I dive fully in, volunteering my time if I have to, and explaining to the world here in the US at least that there is world music out there. And by allowing our ears to open up to absorb that music enables us to also later open our hearts to the culture and become aware of it. Welcome to Madison, Farah.
Thank you so much, Sabi. I absolutely agree. I think music is such a powerful tool. I think that, also being able to share our music is one of the things that, we take pride in when we are able to have intercultural exchanges. And for me, I am living here also in the US right now, but I'm very connected to Jordan and I miss the music I grew up listening to. It makes me very nostalgic to hear a lot of the songs that I grew up listening to. And just in general, it's a very powerful tool. And I feel like with music, we can introduce people who may not know much about our culture. We can still connect on music and also, of course, food, like you said. So I wanted to let this workshop be an introduction to Jordanian music, the instruments, some of the songs, some of the musical heritage that is so rich. So I guess I will just dive in. Sounds good?
Sounds like a plan. I'm all ears with headphones in them.
Okay, I have a presentation. So I'll share the screen. I have a presentation that helps me, one, stay focused and also relay the information in an organized fashion that I would not do if I was speaking without a screen. So let's do this. I will share my screen. and present. Okay, can you see this? Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So, yeah, so I'll be speaking on the music, instruments, and cultural history of Jordan. Again, I want to thank Madison World Music Festival for hosting me and hosting this workshop. I think it's going to be a fun one. I really particularly enjoy sharing this music. And so I'll speak a little bit about Jordan. I grew up in Jordan and listened to a lot of music. Music is everywhere in Jordan. If you go for a meal with your family, you go to a restaurant, there can be someone playing on oud, and there could be like a whole ensemble. It depends where you go. Music is a big part of our cultural heritage, and it's so rich. If I show you the map of Jordan, let me see. You can see that there's a lot of different areas, there's a lot of different subcultures. Also, even in terms of landscape, there's a lot of different landscapes. So we have, you know, the Eastern Desert and the Southern Desert. We also have the Dead Sea, we have Petra, we have the Red Sea in Aqaba. And so you can find anything from desert to very fertile land to sea, and it's very, very diverse. And so for that, among other reasons, the musical culture of Jordan is also very diverse. And I think that's important to note. You know, there's different musical subcultures and different instruments and different ways of performing the music and writing the music that are particular to certain regions. So, and I will get into that. So to share with you, for example, the music of Jordan, it has many parallels with Arabic music from other countries. You have to bear that in mind. We share a lot of musical heritage. We share a lot of instruments and influences. And Jordanian music in general is very folkloric and tribal in its essence. And one of the distinctions of Jordanian music that makes it so particular is the strong Bedouin influence. It is predominantly an oral tradition. It's passed down orally, and that's how people learn it. And so the voice itself is a very powerful tool in the music of Jordan. It is how you often, you know, pass it down from one generation to another. There's also an emphasis on improvised poetry, which is really beautiful. And there's a lot of clapping, which we can go over. There's a lot of clapping involved in Jordanian music in general. And it tends to favor small ensembles, so not big orchestras but actually more intimate settings. And we will go over how, you know, the clapping can be, besides it being used as a rhythmic component, it's, you know, we can use, I mean, it's used in Jordan, but it's also used in Spain and flamenco and other cultures. And each culture has their own way of clapping. But you'll find in a lot of the music that I'll share that clapping is part of the folk tradition. And so if we look at, I'll give a small overview, a very basic overview of Arabic music in general, because Jordanian music is part of Arabic music, and they have a lot of parallels. Like Jordanian music has a lot of parallels with music from other countries in the Arab world. It's important to mention, just give a general overview, that the Arabic music in general is very, very diverse. You know, you have the Middle East, North Africa, and in general, depending on the region, depending on the country, there are specific elements and cultures and traditions that are particular to that. And so maybe the music of Jordan, Palestine, Syria, and Lebanon might have more in common than they might have more in common with each other than they would with, let's say, the music of Morocco and Algeria, including rhythms and instruments. But so it's very, very diverse. However, and also it's it is predominantly vocal music that's passed down orally, so that's something that's very common. But in general, Arabic music does have an emphasis on melody and rhythm as opposed to harmony. Like in Western music, you have polyphonic music, you have like chords and harmony that will underlie the music. It will be part of, let's say, the composition when the performer, if there is a vocalist, the vocalist, he or she or they will be performing over harmony. But in Arabic music, it is a lot more in a kind of unison, where we don't have that kind of harmonic structure that exists in Western music. And it's not exactly tight, so there can be small delays and differences in performing between different instruments, even if they're playing the same melody, so it's not exact unison. But the concept of harmony, as in Western harmony, does not exist in Arabic music. Now, people like myself have incorporated harmony and other elements of different cultures into, you can fuse them, but it's not something that's traditionally inherent, and it's not a tradition at all to have, harmony in Arabic music. That said, I myself am not a traditional Arabic music singer. I'm more of a contemporary Arabic music singer, Arabic and flamenco and English, so singer-songwriter more than, I'm not at all a traditional Arabic music singer. But I do take influences from folk music, and including folk music from Jordan in particular. And there are ways to fuse it, which we can mention later on. But I did want to say the tradition is generally folk and tribal. There is a lot of, the Arabic music is microtonal, so it doesn't adhere to the same tonal system that we have in the West. There are things called quarter tones, where you might have between one note and another. In Western music, there is nothing, whereas in Arabic music, there can be something in between, in the middle, which would be a microtone. And it's not necessarily if you divide it in half, because the division is in 9. And so in some countries, it might be a 4 out of 9. In some countries, it's a 5 out of 9. In others, it might be 4.5. So it generally changes, and it depends on the country and the region. Some of the characteristics of Arabic music is a tuning system, like I mentioned, that is specific to each culture. Maqams, which are not the same as modes, but if you want to think of it within that context, you can consider certain rules that apply to the scale. And that is a whole, PhD thesis in itself, because there are some people who will literally dedicate themselves only to maqams and studying it, because there are over, we know, at least 90 to 110 known maqams. And you can never really, I think, study all of them and know all of them with that degree of mastering. But the general idea is that there's a tonic note, there's a dominant note, and there's ending notes if you don't modulate. And generally, those are determined by the maqam that's used. And of course, the rhythm is based on the percussion instruments, or meaning like the percussion instruments are what are playing the rhythm, as in other music. But if we look at Jordan's musical heritage, so it depends very much on the region and the lifestyle of the people who are performing that music. So in the north, we have farmers who would sing while harvesting. So a lot of the songs are a lot more rhythmic, are faster. It's a faster paced kind of life. And then if you go to the middle, there's a mix of Bedouins and sedentary Bedouins that also farm. So you have a mixture there, but it is a little bit slower than what you would consider in the north. And then in the eastern and southern desert, or in the eastern and southern parts of Jordan, you have Bedouins, and they share a lot of musical heritage there. They share a lot of the same elements. And in particular, in the south of Jordan, you have a strong influence of the sea because you have the Red Sea and the camel caravans. And so there's a big emphasis on poetry and what you would call qasid. But it's also a lot of the music from the south of Jordan is inspired by the sea. The rhythms can be inspired by the waves of the sea. And it can be much more mellow than it would be in the north. And I'm going to show you examples of that. But just to give you an idea, the point I'm making is that the folk music of each region varies with their lifestyle and surrounding environments. And also the kinds of instruments that are played in certain regions of Jordan depend on that lifestyle and surrounding environment. So if we go deeper into that, we will see, for example, I'd like to show some videos, and I hope that the audio and the video will be able to play seamlessly. So this is an example of, I would like to now show examples of music from the north, from middle, from the south of Jordan, and show you how they can be very different. In the north, like we said, they're more fast-paced because there's a big emphasis on harvesting, and it's a faster paced life. So this is a song from the north of Jordan, sung by Abdul Musa and Siham al-Safadi. I will play this. Let's see if you can hear it okay. An example of music from the north, and actually the song is saying one of the farmers is telling a woman that, you know, be careful of being in the sun for like heat stroke, that he's showing he cares about her, and then she says, I'll go to the mountain and sing a poem for you. So it's you know, it's inspired by harvesting. And then another one I'd like to share also from the north, just to give you an idea. I'll show small clips. This is another one from the north, which is also really beautiful. And it talks about, you know, my loved one who's traveling, come back. Okay, so that is two examples from the north of Jordan. And if we look at music from, for example, the middle, kind of what we consider the middle of Karak, It's a little bit more slow-paced. It's more slow-paced than what we would hear from the north. And this is a song that Maysouna Sannah sings. She was known for singing Jordanian folk songs. She had a short career, so it wasn't, she did perform a lot, but it was a short-lived career. And she was blind. And you can see in the video that she has a lot of, well, you can hear from the video how her voice has this beautiful texture to it. And this is one of the videos of her that were captured of her performing a Jordanian folk song from Karak. So I'll play it. So if you see, this is much more slow-paced, but also its instrumentation is a lot more stripped down. It's just oud and voice, which is really, really beautiful, and they fuse beautifully together. And even the melody is slower, the way of performing is slower, and that's kind of one of the examples. And then if we look at the South, there's something that's really fascinating that is particular to Bedouin music, and that's a kind of singing called Samir and also Dahiyya. This video will show both of them. It starts with the Samir, and it's a long video, so I'll only play the end of the Samir and then show that it will go into a Dahiyya. So these are Bedouins from the South, from Rajif, from the desert, and also Samirs are in general ways of performing poetry, celebratory music. It can be a way to welcome a host who, or thank a host for having you. It's a really distinct sound. It's very tribal. It's beautiful. I love it. It's very particular though. I love it. I'm attached to it. So, and it is played at weddings or performed at weddings very often, especially in the South. But this is something that is very particular to Jordan, very, very beautiful. I love it. So I'm going to play it to you from towards the end of the video. And you'll see that initially it'll be like slower paced, but then it will start going into a Dahiyya, which is faster paced, and there's a lot of emphasis on breathing and non-lyrical sounds. And just to give you an idea, this is another way of showing how in the South, when you hear the Samir, you'll hear that in general, it's a lot more slow paced. It is, because there's a lot of influence from the desert. It's hot. It's not as fast paced as the North, where there are farmers and harvesting. But the Dahiyya is actually a form of like a way to get people excited. And there is a person who will stand in front of the line of Bedouins that are performing the Dahiyya, and he will kind of try to, encourage them and get them excited about the music. So you'll hear this. This is the Samir that ends with the Dahiyya.
Oh,
That for me is one of the most fascinating music from Jordan that I just absolutely love. And it's particular to Bedouins and just really, really beautiful. So I wanted to make sure to share that because this is something that really is not, unless you are kind of immersed in that, you will not really come across that kind of music. Even if you are traveling in Jordan, it's very, very rare that you will experience that. I've been lucky enough to experience that even in like weddings and family weddings. But it's not something that you will see just by traveling to Jordan. This is more like deep Bedouin culture. So if we look at the next example of music, this is very interesting because now we're going into more Bahri, into more sea influenced music. And if you look at the music of Aqaba, where there's a port of Aqaba, so it's directly on the Red Sea, it's very particular and even has an instrument that is only found or played within all of Jordan. It's only played in Aqaba, and that's the simsimiyya. And you'll be able to see it. It's kind of like, it looks like a small harp. And it's very particular to Aqaba. But it is an ancient instrument. That said, from what I understand, there's only about 3 or 4 people now who still know how to play it and very well in Jordan. And the man who's playing it in this video is one of them. So it's something that I hope will be preserved. So this is more of the Bahri southern folklore, but inspired by the sea. It's a bit faster, but you'll be able to see that it's different from the rest of the music that I've showed you. So here you go. This is a folk music ensemble from Aqaba, from the south of Jordan.
Yeah.
music from Aqaba. And as you can see, it's so diverse in the rhythms, in the way that it's performed, in even the lyrics, the instruments that are used. It's very different from, you could say that there are subcultures and musical subcultures within Jordan. So this is just me trying to showcase some of the diversity. And we have, obviously, like many other countries all around the world, there's music that's particular to weddings. And in Jordan, this is an example of a wedding, of a zaffa for a wedding, a zaffa. And I was actually trying to look up a video of a zaffa from my wedding, but I couldn't find one. But like, if you're getting married in Jordan, you're gonna have a zaffa, and it's gonna involve a lot of music, and it's really amazing. I'll play that very quickly because I want to get to the instruments. Which is a form of dancing to music, which is beautiful. I'll play a 15-second video of that. So that's an example of dabka. Those are the examples I wanted to mention. There's a song that you will recognize. It's a folk song that you'll recognize from tonight's concert. I don't know if we really have time to show it, so I thought I will just teach it to you. And I could teach it to you towards the end, or I could teach it to you now. Hold on, let's see. I think maybe it would be nice to teach the participants this now. It's called, so it's a song that will be performing at the live stream tonight at 7:45 CDT, 8:45 Eastern time. And it's a Jordanian folk song, but the way that we're performing it is out of its traditional context because it does have harmony, guitar, you know, and other kind of elements that would not exist in traditional contexts. So I'll sing it for you, and then in your home or wherever you are, I want you to sing it back, and I'm gonna believe that you're doing that with me, okay? So it goes like this. كافي ما ريدها طفلة يا لي والعسل ريقها. So now I'll sing the first and then you repeat after me, okay? ريدها 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 ريدها. Okay, then the second one is كافي ما ريدها كافي ما ريدها طفلة يا لي. All right, that's the third part. طفلة يا لي. And then the last part. والعسل ريقها. Let's see. والعسل ريقها. All together. ريدها ريدها كافي ما ريدها طفلة يا لي والعسل ريقها. So when you hear that in tonight's concert, sing it with me, okay? Sabi, do we have time to go over some of the instruments that are?
Yes, looking at the time, I think we do, but you're doing a great job. And then as far as how in depth we have done, I think we're on track. I believe that, and once again, the time Let's see, we have an hour. We should be fine. Keep going, and I'll give you a cue when we're getting closer to running out of time.
Okay. Oh, we have an hour. I thought we had 45 minutes. But okay.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. 45 minutes.
Tell me we can do an hour. I can go. I can keep going.
I have a feeling you can go for a few hours. And this is, you're touching on a lot of things that are very important to the region. And I'm glad that you're doing that. So let's forge forward.
Thank you. All right. So I'll talk a little bit about. Where are we? Sorry, that was my mom giving me a call on FaceTime, which showed up on the computer. Am I back? Can you hear me? You can hear me okay? All right. And mom, if you're watching, I'll call you right back after this. Okay. So back to this. If we look at the musical instruments of Jordan, I've divided them into strings, wind instruments, and percussion. But of course, this is not an extensive list. This is just like the main instruments that are used. We have the rababa, which is very distinct. It has a very distinct sound. It is a single stringed instrument, and it often accompanies voice and poetry. And it's just beautiful. It has a very particular sound. If I was to play a quick clip of it, it would be like this. So it's a very, very particular sound, and absolutely gorgeous. You can find, cheap rababas if you go to the downtown Amman, and you're in the shopping area and you want to buy one. You can buy one, but it won't play the same as like a proper one. But it's something that you'll see in the markets. But it's actually a very traditional instrument that is played a lot with poetry, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And again, it's a single stringed instrument. And then you also have, many of you will probably already recognize the oud, which is a very traditional Arabic music instrument. It's found all over the Arab world, and also other countries like Turkey, Greece, Iran, and others. What is particular to the oud is that it has 11 strings that are grouped into 6, and there's no frets. So there's no, like a guitar where, like one fret, and if you go past it, that's another note. And because there's no frets, you're able to hit the microtones and what we would call tatrba, or like quarter tones in English. And exclusive to only Aqaba in Jordan, which I showed you in the last video, was the simsimiya, which looks very much like a harp. I know that even the gentleman who was in the video playing the simsimiya had also adapted it to add more strings, even though traditionally it wasn't like that. But he is like really impressive with how he can adapt an instrument. But you can see the levers there. That's how you tune the instrument, in the same way that if you look at the oud, at the top of the neck, you can tune it like you would a guitar. And yeah, that's it. And then if we look at the wind instruments, a lot of the wind instruments are exclusive to the north and not found so much in the south. We have the shababe, the nai, which is found in many other countries as well. The mizwij, which is this instrument that shows here, which are 2 wind instruments played together. And it's really very, very particular if you want to hear for a minute or so or less. That's the mizwij. And you have the mizmar, which is also very particular sounding. And surprisingly enough, you have in Jordan bagpipes, which have been, we call them in Jordan girbe, which are have been adapted to microtones. And it's really, really fascinating. You can listen to So that is the girbe. And actually we had, you know, this is something that the British brought with them when they occupied us. And we took the instrument that was particular to our colonizers or occupiers and just made it better. So, and the bagpipes are found in weddings, in the national army, in all events. It's very common. And actually I have a very soft spot for hearing the particular girbe of Jordan. When we look at percussion instruments, we have a lot of similarities with other Arabic countries. Like we have the tabla, the rik, the daf, and those are very, very common all around the Arab world. I was gonna say, let's sing, but we already did. So Savi, I will take it. I'll give it to you from here to,
we have 5 minutes for question and answer, and I'm not sure if everybody there is able to send a chat, but I have a few questions for you, and I think maybe that could be a question that may be on somebody's mind out there.
Sure.
First of all, looking at the origin or the influences of the music, you mentioned that within Jordan there are a few regions. I've lived in Syria for a while. We've traveled through the Gulf states, including Kuwait and parts of Saudi. My parents are both Palestinians, one from the coast and one from the inland. Even their music is slightly different. A lot has happened since the borders were drawn at the end of World War I, and a lot has happened since, moving people around. So I couldn't help but notice that within the different regions of Jordan, you could hear the Syrian music in the northern part. And Samira Tawfiq is from the Syrian Bedouin area, which is connected to. So how frivolous are these borders created and the Arabic nationalism that was born after World War I and continued? And the big one is the demographic shift when something like the State of Israel moved a lot of people when it was created in 1948. Also a civil war in Lebanon in the mid-70s, and a civil war in Syria in the last 10 years. And all of these influences, the demographic shifts, they have to bring with them some of their music and some of their music influences. So is the Jordanian music today different than what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago?
Wow, that's a very in-depth. Oh, wow, I think that would be a whole presentation in itself. But I will say that, you know, like you said, those borders were drawn literally in pencil. And so that's why, and music was very particular to the region in which people lived. So for example, like we said, in northern Jordan, well, it has a lot of influence from southern Syria, right? So there's a lot of blending of those instruments, culture, music, because those lines were drawn on paper by our occupiers and our colonizers. So there is, I think, and that's why there's a lot of instruments that are shared in common. But that said, I mean, for example, even within a country, if you look at like Jordan, you look at how the music from the south differs so much from the north, and how the influence even just of having sea and a port, how that changed even the influence of how they would perform their music, and their inspiration would be the waves of the sea, which you wouldn't get in the desert. So I think what you're saying is that there's so much diversity within all of these cultures, but also a lot that's shared in common. And I do agree. And I think that, you know, folk music is something that is, you know, unfortunately, a lot of it is dying out. And we have people who have passed down oral traditions, and there aren't a lot of them that are still doing that anymore, which is sad. And how has the music changed in Jordan? I mean, I'm sure it has evolved, it's changed. I know that, for example, I will speak of in the last, I don't know, 20 years or so, and especially in the last 10 years, there's been a boom of, like, for example, independent music artists, and music that some of it is folk inspired, some of it is not, but music is always evolving. There's no such thing as, I think, pure music. Even in flamenco, which I have a lot of influences of flamenco in my music, there is no such thing as pure flamenco because it evolved as people were moving through different cultures.
Fantastic. I think we are at the 45-minute marker. Was this the 45-minute for the presentation, or do we have 15 more minutes, Este?
Can you hear me?
I think you're muted.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I would allow a few more minutes. This is such an interesting discussion that may I join it?
Sure.
Because, you know, as you know, Sabi, I don't know if you know Farah, I'm from Israel. And as you guys were talking, I was thinking about two things. First of all, when you were talking about Bedouins, Farah, my early childhood, until I was 8, I lived on a kibbutz, and it was very close to where Bedouins were coming and going. Bedouins, of course, are nomad. And as a child, I was always so fascinated with them. I used to just go there by myself and just stand and watch. And sometimes their kids came and watched me. It was, I think seeing them is what gave me my last of traveling, which I still have. But I also, with this latest question of Sabi's, I was thinking how, you know, growing up in Israel is, the music in Israel is so much Arabic music, and the food is so much Arabic food, and really a lot of the culture is Arabic of some sort or another. So, you know, I mean, that influence goes also to the occupiers, as you said, Farah, which, of course, I mean, I think we know it from places all over the world. But I don't know, I guess I did want to join in because I've been involved in peace work and in supporting Palestinian rights since I was 14. And so your discussion here is so interesting to me. So Sabi, take it over again. I just wanted to put these points in.
We'll keep running till we run out of time. Go ahead, Farah.
Essie, I did not.
Your mom. Your mom is like a Jewish mom.
That was not a number I recognized. But I just wanted to say, Essie, I did not know you were Israeli. But I do want to say thank you for supporting Palestinian rights. I appreciate that. And Savi, I'll let you take over.
At one point, We Are the Children was a song adapted and played by many countries around the world. And the purpose of it was to connect music to a humanitarian cause. And this was one of the very first songs that I think became so popular in the US to shed a light on humanitarian issue. It sounds like you have been involved in several cases where you felt music can make a change in the political landscape, in domestic or foreign policy, or in global efforts to change a situation on the ground. Often we hear from people who say musicians should just stick to making music, don't get involved in politics. But it's really hard to disconnect the two. How did you first get involved in the subject, and what would you like to see happen in the near future?
Well, I think that in general, musicians have been at the forefront of a lot of social change. Music has been a powerful force, and often it's been there have been forces who've tried to shut down music when they speak about social change and about, you know, social justice. And I think it's a very powerful tool. I also know that music has the capacity to you know, to really impact people on an emotional level so that they can understand and care on a much more deep level than if they read an article or were hearing about something from a peripheral, because music has to, there's an emotional connection and a vulnerability that comes with music that I feel makes it so powerful. And for me, you know, as a Jordanian, you know, Jordan was safe, but, you know, there was a lot of conflict around. Like, you know, we had a lot of Palestinian refugees, and between Palestine and Iraq, the Gulf War, and other, you know, Jordan became a country that took in a lot of refugees. And so I knew that it was already something that I was observing in my own country, and I would hear a lot of stories of people who had to flee because of violence. And what I didn't expect is, as a musician, that would become one of the primary focuses of my work as an artist, is to you know, reject all violence, all forms of violence, and in particular to raise awareness about the consequences of war and violence. So that kind of showed me the power of music and how you can often try to raise awareness about certain causes, or you know, impact people, hopefully in a way that will encourage them to take action, to care about certain causes, to spread awareness themselves, and to try to be positive forces of change when they could just be, you know, when they have the option to not take action or not care. Music is a way that music can promote them to care and take action.
Thank you. That's Farah, Siraj. Hey, one more question. I can't let you go without a question about food. I've been out of place most of my life, born a refugee and lived in a foreign country, to me, all my life. And I find food, that connection that we bring with us when we travel. You live in Philadelphia now. What is a quintessential Jordanian dish that you, when you feel the longing, the sense, I need to smell it, I need to taste it, what would that be? I'm putting you on the spot here because we did not rehearse this question.
I'm going to shock you a little bit. So one thing that is not so common in Jordan, but particular to me, is that I'm vegan. So,
okay.
You know, the traditional, you know, and that veganism for me is part of my rejection of violence in all its forms, whether it's to my species or other species. And so, but I love a lot of Jordanian foods are essentially vegan. So I love like hummus, mtabbal, you know, mjaddara, a lot of things. I'm trying to veganize mensaf.
That'd be a push. You'll be stretching it. The primary ingredient in mensaf is meat, for those of you who are listening to us, or lamb.
But I know that there are vegans in Jordan that have replicated the yogurt taste. Yes. And so I'm hoping I can catch on to that and replicate it myself one day.
That's it, you're off the hook.
You're making me hungry and homesick just thinking about all these foods, which of course I grew up on too. I think we need to end up here. Thank you so much, Farah and Sabi. That was great. Sabi, by the way, is a chef. His mother had the first Middle Eastern restaurant here in town, Lulu's. We all still miss it. And Sabi used to own the Kasbah. My kids worked for him when they were young. And I miss that one too. And now he started Saffron. Well, not now. Some time ago he started Saffron.
A couple years ago, yes.
At Union South, which unfortunately is closed now, right? Is it?
For the time being, the food will be served at some point as part of our new plan with the delivery. And we hope that people miss it as much as I do, the traditional Arabic street fair, as they call it, called Saffron. But we're not talking about me today. We're talking about World Music Festival.
I just wanted to put that out.
We want to thank our star, Farah Siraj.
Absolutely.
Is it Siraj or Siraj?
It's Siraj. So I think
that's
very, very passing. But
okay.
I would also give a shout out to Madison World Music Festival and say thank you for hosting me, and thank you for hosting my band and I at the festival, which will be live streaming tonight. Right?
7:45, folks, don't miss it. This is an amazing performance. Thank you, Farah. We'll see you then, 7:45. Thank you, Sabi. And you all come back at 3 for the next workshop with La Musique from Haiti. titled Basic Rhythms, Basic Haitian Rhythms and Dance. I'm Esty Dinor. We'll see you again at 3. Bye, everybody.
Good night.